go ahead and make it be time. Okay. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for sticking with us for the last session. I'm sure you will be glad you did. We have Rebecca Reese from LCCC from their Center for Learning Technology, where she is a senior instructional designer, and she's going to tell us today about digital storytelling. So, 1, 2, 3, go. 1, 2, 3, go.
And again, thank you for sticking around. I know being at the last of the day, you always sit back and you go, how many people are headed home? So I'm very happy to see all your faces here. This is actually a hands-on workshop for those of you who do have devices. You can get this presentation from the website, and all the links are hot in there. So those of you who don't have devices, of course, you're welcome to come back later and look at it again. So really, to start off, the way we perceive the world around us is basically a narrative. We infer meaning, we understand things, we learn things, we transfer that knowledge to another time or another passing of time when it presents itself, if it's aligned with the same things that we've learned. And so one of the things that I have found that works for my students, I adjunct profess, I profess adjunctly, no, kidding, is to have my students use digital storytelling to tell me who they are, where they're going in life, and how they're going to be able to use the tools that they're learning to use to work with their students. And so one of the biggest themes that we have here, if you haven't noticed, is user-created content. And this is also another form of user-created content. You're going to be looking to your students and your learners to be providing some of the actual learning events and activities during the development of these digital stories that they're going to be working with. You could do them as well as a teaching strategy, but a learning strategy, it's a lot more effective to do. And you can use digital stories for pretty much all forms and all subjects. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to describe and incorporate digital storytelling as a teaching and learning tool. We're going to create a storyboard for production, which if you have a device, you can do that. And you're going to basically, I guess, learn about the desktop and web applications that you can use to create digital stories for your courses. So what is it? Digital storytelling basically combines the art of telling a story through mixed multimedia to present it about a specific topic. And it always has to revolve around a theme. Ever watch one of those movies that you just can't follow the theme? It breaks up so much. Butterfly Effect, for one. I had to kind of keep notes the first time I watched it because I really couldn't keep up with it. What? I can't remember.
Memento, where the guy has no short-term memory.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's another one. So when you're creating these stories, you have to make sure that you have an overarching theme and that you follow that theme throughout, that you don't lose the users within that. So the types of digital story, we have personal narrative, pretty simple, revolves around a significant topic or story that you can tell that you have a connection to. Examination of historical events and themes. You can also kind of put a twist on that. You could make it examination of historical events and themes in science or in mathematics. So not just history as we might commonly perceive it. And then information or instruction relevant to a subject. There again, we're talking about something a little more concrete. Maybe if you want to do we go back to the frog eggs from the discussion before. If you want to have the students do a story on how frogs develop from an egg to a tadpole and such. So the first thing is storyboarding. And the reason that storyboarding is so important is because you don't lose your theme. You don't lose your end point or your key points. And when it comes to storyboarding, you're going to do your key items. You don't have to do an actual event that you're going to be recording. But this way you can keep track of where you're going and making sure that maybe if there's items in there that you need to reevaluate, you can loop back to those. So this way you can share your vision with others. If you have a team that you're working with, you can show it maybe to another faculty member and say, hey, am I missing something? Do I have everything here? You can establish a plan, obviously, of production. So what are the key pieces that I need to grab? What key pieces of video? What items of images or audio do I need to get? And then it reduces your creation time, because then you're not struggling and gathering things at the last minute. You know exactly what you need all at one time. And you can see it in a way to where the items work together, rather than if you just do an outline. You can miss pieces that way. I've done that. I've like missed entire, you don't even want to know. So, as I said, these items are actually active. So if you get the storyboard, if you get the presentation, you can actually go to these. And the one that we're going to look at very quickly today is called Storyboard That. It's very simple. You can actually use the system without having to pay for it, but you only get a couple of storyboards per week. If you want to pay for it, you could look into that, and I'm sure with maybe a collection of instructors, you could get together and get an account, because it's not overly expensive, but it's difficult to get money, I know, nowadays. So this was the one that I used, and as you saw on this presentation here, will it go back? This was actually one of the demos that I created. And so the first one was kind of a hybrid of me going out the door to go to get on to the evolution, which is actually over here. So now we'll go back to Storyboard That. And so if you want to create a new storyboard, then basically all you do is you click Create Storyboard, and it always wants to give you these pop-ups. Now they have lots of individual items where you can, I'm gonna put this here for just a second. Maybe shrinking down. Okay, so you have a lot of already pre-made backgrounds that you can choose if you want. And remember, we're not having to do the exact background, so you don't want to necessarily do your school. But if you have the outside of a school, then that could, or the inside of a school, then that could be the representation of the school that you're at. Then if you want to add characters, very simply, there's all different kinds of characters. There's teens and kids, and you can take them and simply drop them in. And then the fun part comes. Then you get to color their hair different colors. You can make their skin different colors, their eyes different colors, and just change anything you want to on this student. As you can see, it is responsive there. Then what you want to do is if you have this student in other scenes, all you do is come back here and copy it and paste it. You don't have to do it over and over again. You can change their pose. You can do speaking, sitting, angry, sad, walking, all kinds of neat little things. And then if you actually get further into it, you can get into the poses and you can rotate them different degrees so that they actually are aligned with a direction that you might want them to go, so that you can see them interacting maybe with each other. You can add your own photos if you want. You can add diagrams if you have a specific diagram. So again, if we go back to the a frog life cycle, if you have those already drawn out, if you want to upload those into the system, you can do that. The biggest thing is, again, not losing your key points, making sure that you have those elements in there and that you cover them fully when you do the actual digital story. The boards themselves are just to remind you what you've got. So don't feel you have to fill them up with every little thing. These are your grand scheme. These are your large, overarching thoughts or competencies, basically, that you want to cover. All right, so now we're going to go back. We can even do something as simple as using PowerPoint. Very simple. If you have pictures of the school and the students want to use the PowerPoint, maybe that's something that you have, and so you can have them insert that picture in there, and then maybe have stick figures or pictures of their own faces that they put into the PowerPoint themselves, so they know that Billy and Johnny and Susie and Jane are all going to be in this one image, and it's going to be the front of the school. That's fine. And it's very simple for them to do. And most students know how to use PowerPoint products, Microsoft products. So, and is anybody actually working through this on their computer? No. Okay, great. So after, no worries. So after you have your entire storyboard mapped out, what you're going to do then is you're going to do your narration. And so the narration piece comes in to be important because then later on you're going to have the actual video product, which is the next piece. If you don't work through the narration pieces, then again, you're going to lose something. You're going to miss a key point or a key item. Maybe you'll see that you're talking too much and you're not bringing enough of the students in or the other people who might be involved in it. It's always better to bring in multiple individuals to come in and have interactions into the video so that way it breaks up the learning and that they're not just looking at you, listening to you the whole time. So it changes the scene a little bit for them. So then the next thing what you would do is you would actually go and you could get iMovie if you have it. You could do Adobe, any of the Adobe items actually will make the videos for you. The simplest and easiest one is Microsoft Photo Story. It's free. I'm not going to download it onto this computer. It's free. Can I? Maybe not. Oh, okay, cool. I can. That way you can actually see it. And mirror one. I should call my tech guy up here, Brandon. Make Brandon do this part. Anyway, so this one is really, really super easy. And as you'll see, there's no accounts you have to create. You can put it on multiple computers. It doesn't have to have anything that the students particularly need. ¿Dónde está? Brandon, did you see where it went? Oh, man. Don't even have a download. Oh, there it is. Nope. Nope. Run. It's thinking. All right, so while this is downloading and doing, how about them Red Sox? I know nothing about baseball, so. Cowboys. How about the Cowboys? Which one? I know. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Oh my. And I'm not sticking around with this. So unfortunately, this presentation is going to be really short now. So Microsoft Photo Story. What it does is it lays out a line for you. It lays out an actual film strip line. You have little segments to where you can put in, whoa, multiple ones, yay. You have segments where you can put in actual images if you want. Yes. Yes, I know. Well, yes, I would, but how many of you have, of your schools have Apple products only? Only. Okay, one? Okay. So there you go. Just close. We're just going to keep going. So what you'll do is you'll pull up a film strip piece, and it will pop in. Obviously I can't download things on this computer. The fun with presentations. So, and say we were talking before, you have the picture of your school. You can pull that picture up into that iframe, basically, or that frame, and then you can have a student narrate over, or you, that frame and talk about their school, whatever they want to say. It will record up to, I believe, about 5 minutes on each frame. But as we know, most videos, when we watch them too much more over 5 minutes, we're kind of wanting to move on to the next item. So it is highly suggested that you do shorter videos and then maybe have multiple pieces where they come in and to tell these different stories. So if we have the very first frame and we have the student and they put the picture of the school up there, maybe they're a new student, and they talk about the school, why they came to school, what they like best about the school, then the next frame could be them at the school, watching them do some sort of activity. So that's a very quick narrative, personal narrative that they could do. In the YouTube Movie Maker, which we're not even going to try that one either because we just don't know. That one's fully online, so it's differently accessible. You don't have to have it downloaded and installed on your computers, and so it will be more accessible to more devices. And of course, then it's also accessible to devices such as this. Oh, and Storyboard that is actually an app, and it is accessible to this and then this. So if your students only have a smaller device at home maybe to use, or you're running out of devices and you got $100 and you're able to buy, a couple of tablets really on the cheap at newegg.com, not a plug, then you can actually have them working on those while maybe some other students are working on one of your larger computers, maybe that's a dedicated computer. And so when we do ones like the Movie Maker, and then on all these others under the web tools. Now some of these have a little bit more of a learning curve. Storyboard is actually a really good one. And that one is another telling a story. It's a lot more... Brandon, come here. Brandon's gonna make Photo Story work for us. Yay. So while Brandon's setting that up so you can actually see what one of them looks like, Storyboard is another fairly easy to use tool. It is web accessible, and all of them basically, they allow you to have pretty much full control over the actual items themselves that go in. They don't give you like the storyboard that. They don't give you the background setup pieces to where it's automatically made for you. But don't think that you have to actually have these items, like there, or you have to make them yourself. There are a lot of images and videos and such through free online digital libraries, and so really just looking for open source products and pieces. Thank you. So this is Photo Story, and it's really super easy. Like I said, you can just click Begin Story, and then can I import a picture? Oh, come on. Camera roll, save pictures. Well, maybe not. Well, fine. This is turning out to be a challenge. There you go. All right, I'm gonna set this down, because this is crazy. All right. Geez. I typed too fast. Okay. Okay. All right, so very easy, as you can see on here. This is good. This is my what did you do today? Well, okay, so as you can see, this image, and let's see, will it make it bigger? No, that stinks. Okay, right here, all we've done so far is we have put in the picture. We can remove the black borders if we would like. And that's just basically for like the story mode versus, the standard wide mode. So we can say yes, and we say nah. And then so very easily, if we want to edit anything, we can rotate the picture if we'd like. We can close. Then we go to the next step. The very next step would be to add in our text. Again, this is the narrative that is going to be going on the actual screen. This is not the piece that you're reading. So if you just say, And then you can change your colors. You can do all this great stuff that you want to do, always keeping in mind the items of universal design for learning, so that we have full control in what can be done by the users outside of what we have it do. Then we do next, and now this is the actual recording piece. So this is where you would type for, or your student could type for somebody to speak. Well, no, big hands. Okay. So what this would be here, this obviously is not seen, and then when you click the red button here, obviously, it records, and then you have the option to preview it. If you like it, then it stays on there, and I don't know if it's recording. We'll just say that it is. And then when you click preview, it will actually play that one slide. It won't go through the whole thing. Sometimes I know when you get into PowerPoint, you have to tell it to really only look at that one, or it tries to go to the next one, especially if you've set up animations or other items for it to click on. So then you click next. This is where you can add music. Maybe if you have students who are in a music class and you want them to talk about music through a particular time. Say if we wanted to look at the Flapper series, you know, during the time in the 20s, right? If they wanted to look at music during Prohibition, then they could actually look that kind of information up and share the music here. Most of those, I think, should be open when it comes to copyright and stuff, because they are past the time, so should be fine with that. A lot of times, though, if you want to, you can actually find music that is free otherwise. And then you would click next. And then, of course, if you have the whole entire thing done, you would save your story. Always save your story to the computer before you do anything else. That's just a backup thing. If you wanted to go back, you could go back at any time. But you would save your computer, and then you could either email it, or you could set it to be an actual playable video that could be either put onto a website, embedded into a website. You could upload it into YouTube. Now that I think about it, I actually have one embedded here. This is a digital story that was done for one of my graduate school classes. There's music playing in the background. Oh, there it goes. And so what we did with this video, and I know out of context it doesn't help you, in a graduate class that I had, we had one side took the astronomy side, one side took the astrology side, and we had to show and defend that, well, astronomy is the only science. There's no such thing as astrology. It doesn't exist. And astrology had to go, oh, but no, astrology isn't a science. We're real. And I had to make that cross between to show that they really intermingled as the years went on, as the ages went on. And so what it did was just basically kind of a filler piece to show that really one kind of helped the other develop. And so we really wouldn't have one without the other, basically. But Brandon is saying that yes, that astronomy is the only real science. That's because he is one of those. So yeah, so that was, it could be something as simple as that. It doesn't have to have words if you don't want it to, as long as it conveys a meaning, as long as there's a theme throughout, and the people that it is being delivered to understand what's happening. They understand the purpose behind why they're looking at it, and it provides some sort of support to whatever they're learning or whatever they're being active with. So, right. If I take that out, because we're not going to do that again. Okay. Thank you. Just meet. Okay. So, some tips to keep in mind. Tell a story that says something. Make sure that you have a beginning, a middle, and end. So give them a reason why they're looking at it. Tell them what they're needing to know, and then maybe remind them at the end, or ask them to look into it further and provide some other sort of assessment at the end. Maybe it could be they make their own digital story based off information that they learned in yours, so then they're continuing to add to the content. Show through observational narrative. Don't tell, talk about it. Make sure that you're sharing something that they can connect to. Be cinematic. It's all about the quality, not the quantity. You don't have to give 5,000 images, and narrative doesn't have to go with everything. It's what you put into it. Make sure it's logical, coherent, and keeps focus. I lose focus all the time when it comes to making these. That's why a storyboard works. You kind of get involved and you get down those bunny holes. How many of you have chased the rabbit down the hole because you see something and you're like, oh yeah. Transcribe and paste the narration. So one of the biggest things that we have to remember when we are teaching or providing some sort of instruction is pacing. Don't just run right through it and then say, got it? You got it, right? Okay, we're good. And go to the next piece. Pace yourself through. Take those moments within the actual narratives to let them reflect upon something. Maybe even remind them of something that they saw a couple of slides before. As we heard earlier in the keynote speaker, she says, how often do you have a time when you say something to your students and they're like, I don't remember us talking about that. So remind them, bring things back and make sure that they connect to each other. And then provide a wrap up. Don't just leave them hanging. Again, remind them why they were looking at this. Remind them why they were building it. If they're going to be doing their own digital narrative as an assessment at the end. Challenges. It's not as hard as you think. One of the biggest challenges used to be the technology, but now we have so much technology, you can throw a stick out there and hit what you need to use. So, that's not so much the challenge anymore, but trouble formulating a sound argument. A lot of times for students is taking that moment to sit back and go, this is important because. Because why? Make sure they get the why. Make sure you provide the why if you're creating it. Time constraints. Sometimes that is a little difficult because you get them, I don't know how long school blocks are now. When I was in school, junior high, I remember we had 55 minutes in each classroom. And now, of course, there's some, how much? 90 minutes. 98, okay. So a little longer than we were running from block to block to class. And then in some schools, the higher schools, they do 4-hour blocks, and you're literally in a class for 4 hours, at least where I come from. So, you may run into those kinds of issues. And then copyright or intellectual property issues. That's not so much of an issue anymore as well, because there are so much more items out there for open education resources so that you can access those anytime, anywhere, and your students as well. And I know you can't read that. It's a really long list. It's a really long list of resources. And so there's resources on there for actually walking you through the steps or walking your students through the steps of the components of a digital story. And there's more resources in there that actually will provide the why. So if you need to go and ask for money to get tools for your classroom, there's resources in here that are research studies and articles that will help provide the why these are good and these support learning. So you just pull some of those out, hand them over, maybe they'll help out. So yeah. And I'm available for you guys to call or contact at any time. Again, the presentation's in there. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me, and I will work with you in any way that I can to help make this a little bit more tangible for you, for your class, for your subject, for your students. If you have students, that maybe you not really sure how, could meet their needs, maybe younger students or something, don't hesitate to contact me. Any questions? And I'm sorry we don't have any devices for you to, okay. Yes?
You mentioned the astronomy. What other subjects do you see it working in, specifically?
So what other subjects other than astronomy does it specifically work in? No, okay, that's no problem. Okay, so, well, like I said, we did the astronomy one. In another class, I remember seeing they were doing, man, that light's really bright. There, your big blue dot now. In another class, they were doing cooking. So they were looking at cooking and how cooking shaped through the ages. They were following, there was a video actually out that they based it on. So a man who looked at the different types of cooking that we had and that we learned to do through the ages. And so that went along with chemistry because they talked about fermentation and things like that. You can do biology, obviously. That seems pretty simple to lend itself towards cycles of life cycles and development cycles and things like that. You could do educational psychology, really, if you wanted to do how do people learn, and then look at the way people have theorized how people learned throughout the centuries and the ages. You can really, it really lends itself to anything you want to explain. Anything you want to share? Yeah.
As you were saying that, it sounded to me sort of like you could use Brain Pop as a model, except now you're putting in your own background and characters and all that sort of thing.
Absolutely, Brain Pop is a good one. Animoto was another one that I had on there. That Animoto is a really good one to use as well. We really just Weavidoo, yeah. It really just depends on the tool that you're most comfortable with and that your school allows you to access, or that you can get an account to, maybe share with others. Like I said, you can get a couple of faculty members together and purchase one. They're really not expensive. And then there's the free options, so. Okay.
But it can be totally mobile, like Brandon talked about earlier.
It can be totally mobile. You don't have to have a dedicated device at all.
And then how do kids share it with the whole class?
Well, so for like example, in the Storyboard, in the Windows photo story, that actually can go into an MP4, and then it's playable on any device. And so you can put it into YouTube, which is what I did with that piece, and anybody can access it from anywhere. So if you had an account for YouTube for your class, then your students could upload into that, the projects that they make, or you could upload into that for them. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming.